Good morning, class. Welcome to history. Glad to be with you this morning. Hope you enjoyed your Martin Luther King Jr. Day and were able to enjoy a day off of school. And some of you guys are actually heading back to school if school is open today with the snow. Anyways, I'm gonna post these lessons for history. Usually, I have one lesson one lesson a week that I do live, but I have a baby boy that's coming and he can come any day. And so I'm trying to get ahead so that you always have your lessons. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'll have the lessons prepared and I will instead have a open hour, like open office hour for each subject during the week. So if I'm not going to the hospital for my baby boy to come, I will be in office hours. So, for instance, let's say Monday is history. So from like 9 to 10, if you have any questions about history, you can come in. Same thing on Tuesday, like 9 to 10, if you have any questions about science. So I'll have an hour a day where you can come in and ask questions about a specific subject. So just be on the lookout for conference invites. I'll just put it through our Section B class, and I will label it either math or history or science. So if you have any questions, you can come in and ask those to me so I can help you, especially those that are behind and need to complete an assignment or complete a subject that got an incomplete from last quarter. You can come in and I can help you get caught up. So that's the plan. I will have just recorded lessons right now and then have live open office hours to work with you directly. So let's jump into chapter 7 of history, which is the Stamp Act crisis, all right? So we're going to learn about the word boycott, okay? So a boycott is an organized protest in which people refuse to buy goods or do business with a particular group of people, company, or country. So for instance, you could like boycott, I don't know, Walmart, for instance. Just say Walmart was doing something that you guys didn't agree with, and a lot of people say, in the world didn't agree with Walmart doing something. People could boycott against Walmart and stop doing business with Walmart, either as retailers or as individuals, as customers. We could stop shopping there. So that's an example of a boycott. So the word boycott comes from an English land agent named Charles C. Boycott. He refused to reduce the high rents he charged his Irish tenants. So the word boycott comes from an individual whose last name was Boycott. The tenants responded by refusing to buy any of Boycott's goods or lands. So the word boycott came not from the person that had the last name Boycott, but from the people who refused to buy or to do business with the person that had the last name Boycott. So the word boycott did not become part of the English language until 1897, more than 100 years after the events covered in this lesson. So we're going to learn about boycotting, but during this lesson that we're going to read, they actually didn't use the word boycott. It wasn't until 100 years after that we've labeled what they did boycotting. So the idea of boycott, however, is older than the word itself and was very familiar to the colonists in the 1700s. All right. So we will read about the colonists and how they used a boycott to protest Parliament and its policies and actions. All right, so let's call attention to the big question. All right. What does it say? Read it with me. Why did the Stamp Act cause so much anger in the colonies? So we're going to learn about the Stamp Act and why it made the colonists so angry. All right. Okay, so let's look for answers to that big question. Remember to participate in the big question discussion post and then also complete the chapter vocabulary words. Please do not copy and paste a definition from Google or anywhere else. Use the definitions from the book. That will help me know that you are actually getting in the book, okay? Okay, so let's start reading. Follow along with me. A tax on paper. The British also created new taxes to collect money from the colonists. In 1765, Parliament passed the Stamp Act. This law made colonists pay a tax on just about every kind of printed paper. So not like stamps that you put on an envelope to send it, but the Stamp Act was anything that was printed or stamped on paper was taxed. So the tax applied to about 50 different items in all, and that is a lot. So let's look at this picture right here. It looks like some protesters who are trying to stand up against the Stamp Act. They have their signs. No Stamp Act. So people began to protest against the Stamp Act. So under the Stamp Act, colonists had to buy special tax stamps from a tax collector. They would put a stamp on each of the taxed items they used. Every time they bought such things as a newspaper, a calendar, a marriage license, or any kind of legal or business paper, they had to pay a tax. They even had to pay a tax on playing cards. This made many of the colonists very angry. Did you see why the colonists were so outraged? Had their own colony assembles passed this tax law? No, they had not. It was the British Parliament and faraway London, England. So people far away are putting a tax on people that aren't even in the same area, and that's frustrating. Sure, British subjects living in Great Britain were already paying a stamp tax, but those subjects were represented in Parliament. The colonists were not. They could not elect members of Parliament. They had no voice and no representation in Parliament. What right did Parliament have to pass a law taxing them? None. Absolutely none. To the colonists, this was taxation without representation. It was completely unjust. Okay, let's pause and learn what this phrase or idiom is. So, taxation without representation. Read this with me. The idea that American colonists did not have a say in the English Parliament, which enacted taxes without their consent. So we've talked about represents, right? Representatives, where us as the people or those of the colonies would elect, they would choose people to represent them, to give them a voice in the government or in Parliament. But these colonists, they didn't elect anybody in Parliament. They didn't have any representation in the Parliament. And so these people in Parliament are not really representing the colonists, and they chose to tax people in the colonies. And so that's why they thought it was unjust. They weren't being represented in the Parliament, but they were being taxed by Parliament. So they had no voice. A leader emerges. One colonist who strongly protested the Stamp Act was a 29-year-old Virginian named Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry was a member of the the Virginia Assembly, known as the Virginia House of Burgesses. He gave a powerful speech against the new tax. He warned that the Stamp Act would take away the colonists' liberty. Patrick Henry's speech was printed in newspaper throughout the colonies. And let's pause really quick. Let's look at this cool picture of Patrick Henry when he was speaking out against the Stamp Act. Let's continue to read. The speech made people think. In New York, Boston, Newport, and other places throughout the colonies, people protested, debated, and formed groups called the Sons of Liberty. These groups threatened the stamp tax collectors. Actually, I want to pause really quick. The Sons of Liberty, those are the people that helped Johnny Tremaine get out of jail. Oh man, I'm blanking on his name. The boy, the kid, the man that works in the printing press shop. Oh man, I gotta read chapters 1 through 4, but I gotta get back into it. Anyways, that guy that helped Johnny Tremaine in court and get away from Mr. Light, he's a member of the Sons of Liberty. All right, so let's continue to read. So these groups threatened the stamp tax collectors. So the Sons of Liberty threatened the stamp tax collectors. Many stamp tax collectors decided that the best thing to do was get out of town and forget about selling tax stamps. Nice. So these people threatening the stamp tax collectors at least worked for a little bit. The stamp tax collectors left town. All right, next section. The colonies protest. The Sons of Liberty did more than threaten tax collectors. They also organized a boycott of British goods. Okay, remember, they didn't call this boycotting back then, but the word boycott represents what they did. So boycotting, remember, a form of organized protest in which people refuse to buy goods or have anything to do with a particular group or country. So these people are not doing anything with the British goods. They didn't want to buy, sell, or trade British goods. People throughout the colonies agreed not to buy goods from Great Britain as long as the Stamp Act remained a law. Like the Sons of Liberty, women's groups called the Daughters of Liberty helped support the boycott. One of the most important goods purchased from British merchants was cloth. To make up for the growing shortage in the colonies, the Daughters of Liberty wove their own cloth. The Sons of Liberty, Daughters of Liberty, and the many other people who supported the colonists' cause gave themselves another name. They called themselves patriots. All right, let's pause. That's our next vocabulary word. A patriot is a person who supported the cause of the colonists during the American Revolution. And people call themselves patriots today as well. People that serve for their country, they make sacrifices for this country, they call themselves patriots. Or maybe they don't call themselves that, but other people would call them a patriot. All right. Colonial leaders knew they could do more to put pressure on Parliament. Colonial leaders called for a special meeting of the colonies to decide on a course of action. That's our next phrase, vocabulary phrase. Course of action is a plan to respond to a situation. So these colonial leaders are getting together to figure out how to act or how to respond to the Stamp Act. In October 1765, 9 colonies sent delegates or representatives to the meeting held in New York. All right, let's pause really quick. So Patrick Henry's newspaper article influenced many people in the colonies. This looks like a print worker, printing out his words and sending them in the newspaper. All right, so back to New York with these representatives. Delegates at the Stamp Act Congress agreed on a number of statements that confirmed the rights of the colonists as British subjects. They also asked Parliament to repeal the hated law. All right, our next vocabulary word. To cancel or draw away with something such as a law. So the colonists wanted Parliament to take away the Stamp Act, the law that they hated. These actions by the colonists shocked the leaders of the British government. They were especially worried by the meeting of the Stamp Act Congress. Never before had the colonies acted together against the British government. British leaders did not want this to become a habit. British merchants weren't happy either. The boycott was causing them to lose a lot of money. A lot of things. British government didn't want this to become a habit, right? People coming together and repealing or boycotting things that the British government is trying to impose. And now the British merchants are losing a lot of money because no one is buying or selling or trading their goods, especially cloth. In 1766, after 1 year, Parliament repealed the Stamp Act. When the news reached America, the colonists celebrated. Through their resistance, they had brought an end to the hated Stamp Act. Okay, our last vocabulary word. Last vocabulary word. So resistance is an effort to stop a law or policy from taking effect. Those that have watched Star Wars, especially the newest episodes, 7 through 9, they could talk about the resistance, those that are trying to fight against the First Order. So, a few hundred years ago, there was these boycotters, these colonists who resisted British Parliament and the Stamp Act. And because of their resistance and how they boycotted that, after a year, British Parliament repealed or took away the Stamp Act. Of course, they still loved their king. No one was talking about leaving the British Empire. The Stamp Act had really been nothing more than a conflict between members of the same family. All right, that's our end of our chapter. Thanks for following along with me. If you want some help with the big question, I'm going to go through some hints and tips. If not, I'll see you guys in the next video. For those that want some help with the big question, why did the Stamp Act cause so much anger in the colonies? So some key points that should be cited in your answer. The colonists did not have any say in the parliament. Remember, they didn't have any representatives. Okay, so that's a big part. And they believe that they shouldn't have to pay a tax because what? What was the key phrase that we learned? Taxation, and then word and word. So 3 words: taxation, blank, blank. All right, that's a little hint. And those things should be cited and put and pointed out in your big answer to your big question for you to get full credit. Okay. Just a reminder again, just what I said at the very beginning. I'm going to be doing all recorded lessons right now as I'm waiting for my baby boy to be born. But in the meantime, I do want to be able to be available to help answer any questions that you have. And so I'll be having open office hours each day, or at least 4 days a week: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, as long as I can right now. Each day will be set apart for a certain subject. So if you have questions about that subject, you can come in and I can help you with those. So just look out for a invite. I'll also just send a Canvas message or an announcement, and then maybe even an email to your parents or guardians to let you know about that. So if you do have any questions about a certain subject, you can come jump in during those open office hours. But until then, I will see you guys in the next lesson. Have a good day.